The old silver Mercedes C-Class rolled slowly through the security gate, tires crunching loudly against the white gravel, breaking the silence of the secluded hill. From the second-floor balcony, I looked down, a glass of scotch still half full in my hand, watching the car pull up in front of my mansion. It was Victoria, my sister. She rolled down the window, her eyes wide, staring fixedly at the $2.5 million structure of tempered glass and black steel towering before her. I could see the panic choking her. Victoria was trembling as she held her phone, sobbing to my mother, asking why the useless little sister they had thrown away was living in a fortress she couldn't even dream of. 3 years ago, the script was completely different. That night, in a dining room thick with the smell of expensive candles and the fakeness of the Hartman family, my parents signed a $100,000 check and handed it to Victoria as a wedding gift. They looked at her like she was a queen, the embodiment of perfection. Then they turned to me, eyes cold as surgical scalpels, and dropped the 6 words that killed the person I used to be. You don't deserve any help. Not a dime, not a blessing, just naked contempt. That night, I didn't cry and I didn't scream. I stood up, pushed my chair back, making a sharp screech on the oak floor, and walked out of that house without looking back. I cut every contact, every blood tie, and buried the name Lily Hartman under layers of concrete and oblivion. They thought my silence was a sign of defeat. They thought I was rotting away in some shabby apartment, chewing on my humiliation. But they were wrong. Silence isn't surrender. It's the sound of sharpening a knife. And today, when Victoria looks at this mansion, she doesn't just see wealth. She's looking at the death sentence of our family's arrogance. Before I tell you just how shameless my family was when they walked through that gate, let's pause for a second. Where are you watching this video from? And what time is it there? Comment below. I want to know how far this story has traveled. And if you've ever been looked down on by your own family, leave a broken heart emoji so we know we aren't alone. The Hartman family in Boston was a masterpiece of hypocrisy. From the outside, we were the enviable standard of the American upper class. Dad was a renowned surgeon, Mom was a university professor, living in a colonial house with a lawn manicured to the millimeter. But inside those walls, covered in family vacation photos, existed a brutal hierarchy where love wasn't a birthright, but a scarce resource rationed out to only one person. Victoria, my sister, was the heir to that throne. She possessed the looks, the charm, and our parents' expectations like an expensive piece of jewelry around her neck. And me? I was the background, the daughter constantly reminded to try harder, even when I had run until I collapsed. Memories of Sunday dinners still haunt me like the smell of antiseptic on Dad's scrubs. I remember the sound of silverware hitting expensive bone china, my parents droning on about Victoria's achievements at private school. But when the conversation shifted to me, the atmosphere instantly dropped, becoming light and full of fake charity. Lily is very independent, Mom would say with a smile that never reached her eyes. She's used to managing on her own. Independent was the fancy word they used for neglected. At 16, while I was washing dishes to stuff loose change into a chipped jar under my bed, Victoria got a brand new car with a giant red bow parked in the driveway for the whole neighborhood to admire. The day I went to college, I left in a beat-up Toyota I bought myself, the engine groaning like a death rattle. That same day, Dad proudly handed Victoria the keys to a shiny luxury sedan. The injustice in this house wasn't loud, it was quiet, sharp, and cut deeper into my self-esteem every single day. Despite being the black sheep, I frantically tried to prove my existence had value. By 20, I had carved out my own path in marketing. No glamour, no lavish celebration parties, just grinding at a mid-sized firm. But even that self-made effort was met with Mom's dismissive pout. You should have chosen something more meaningful, she sighed, eyes still glued to Victoria's prestigious certificates on the wall, as if my hard work was just child's play. That was when Ethan entered my life. A software engineer with calm, steady eyes and the ability to see right through my family's sick mind games. With him, for the first time, I felt a strange sense of relief. He didn't look at me as the shadow sister or the family disappointment. He saw me wholly. I naively hoped my family would see him that way too. Mistake. The first time I brought Ethan home for Thanksgiving, the temperature in the living room felt like it dropped below zero. Dad swept a sharp, assessing gaze over him in seconds and seemed to conclude he wasn't enough. Mom asked questions that sounded like compliments but were actually sugar-coated knives. And Victoria? She sat there, shining bright with a diamond engagement ring, giving Ethan a bored, social smile before turning to brag endlessly about her fiancé Andrew's powerful connections. I tried to swallow the bitter lump in my throat, that sickeningly familiar feeling of always coming second, of being the extra in my own home. But that night, a crack formed underground when Dad tapped his spoon against his wine glass for attention. He started a speech toasting Victoria's upcoming wedding. The pride in his voice was warm, full, and emotional. A warmth that had never once been directed at me. I didn't know it then, but that dinner was just a tremor. The real earthquake was still waiting ahead to bury my last shred of hope. The breaking point of this relationship didn't come from a massive explosion. It came quietly, disguised as a Sunday dinner my parents called a talk. Ethan and I drove over, bringing a bottle of expensive red wine and stupid, cautious optimism. I was still deluding myself that this was a chance. Maybe, just maybe, they were finally ready to open up and accept their second daughter. But the moment I stepped into the dining room, I felt the bone-chilling cold. The air was thick with awkwardness. Mom's social smile vanished the second she turned to get plates, replaced by a stiff look of tolerance. The table was set poorly, no candles, no flowers, a complete contrast to the lavish feasts they threw for Victoria. Dad didn't even bother looking up from his water glass as he muttered a greeting. We sat there, exchanging meaningless stories about the weather, traffic, and Ethan's job while the lasagna went cold. No questions about our engagement, not a single congratulation. Their silence was so loud I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, as Mom poured coffee, I took a deep breath, deciding to break the ice. We wanted to talk a bit about the wedding, I said, voice trying to stay steady. We're planning something small, but we hope you guys will want to be involved. Dad slammed his coffee cup down on the table, porcelain clashing against wood. Involved? What exactly do you mean? His voice held no curiosity, only accusation. Ethan leaned forward, calm and steady. We aren't asking for anything, sir. We just thought a respectful discussion was the right thing to do. Mom clasped her hands together, eyes sharp. Respect is following this family's traditions, Ethan. Victoria understands that. She has always understood that. There was that name again. The comparison sharp as a razor. I swallowed hard, throat dry. We aren't asking for $100,000 like her, just moral support. Dad let out a breath, irritation radiating off him like heat waves. Lily, your sister made choices that match the value of this family. She married someone on her level. She invested in maintaining the reputation of the Hartman line. He paused, cold eyes drilling into me. You did not. Mom added a second stab right after Dad's words, her voice soft but full of venom. You've never done that, Lily. Victoria knows how to elevate this family, and you only know how to chase pipe dreams. Ethan sat up straight beside me, jaw clenched, ready to speak up and defend me. But I raised a hand to stop him. Don't, I whispered. I needed to hear it all. Maybe deep down, I always knew this was coming. Dad looked me straight in the eye. No hesitation, no fatherly love, just the coldness of a surgeon cutting out dead tissue. Listen clearly, Lily. You do not deserve any help from us. Each word dropped like a lead bullet, heavy and final. Not worthy. In that moment, something inside me went dead silent. It didn't shatter. It didn't collapse. It froze over like a lake in a harsh Boston winter. Mom added one more sentence, her voice so small it was cruel. It's for your own good. You need to learn true independence. Even though Victoria wasn't there, her presence suffocated the room. Her gold-framed photos on the wall seemed to be mocking me, proof that I was just an outsider in my own home. I slowly placed my napkin on the table, a definitive motion like ending a bad contract. We're leaving. Lily? Mom reached out, but it was just a reflex, holding no warmth or regret. On the drive back, Ethan held my hand tight, his thumb stroking my knuckles to comfort me, but I felt almost nothing. Dad's words kept echoing in my head, looping like a stuck tape. You don't deserve it. By the time dawn broke, that numbness had turned into iron will. I blocked their numbers. I deleted the family group chat. I cut every fragile string I had tried to hold onto for years. I wouldn't wait for them to see me anymore. I would make them regret not seeing me. Going no contact sounds dramatic, but in reality, it happened with a strange calmness. That Monday morning, I woke up, made coffee, and sat at the small kitchen table next to Ethan. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting long stripes on the wood. I opened my phone, looked at the family group chat one last time. Vacation photos I wasn't invited to, updates on Victoria's wedding I used to read with pathetic hope, and hit Leave Group. The screen blinked, wiping away the traces. Then I blocked Mom and Dad, blocked Victoria. My chest tightened, but it didn't break. It felt like untying a noose that had been choking me for years. I threw myself into work like a maniac. I quit my old job and co-founded a startup with 2 colleagues in a tiny office in the attic of an old coffee shop. In winter, the heater rattled like it was going to explode. In the rainy season, the windows fogged up. But the energy there was something I'd never had. Every day was a fight to build something from nothing, something entirely mine. Ethan was always there, bringing late-night food, offering encouragement at 2 a.m., or just a silent hug when the pressure got heavy. He was never jealous of my ambition. He was the fuel burning it. By year 2, our client list tripled. We weren't just surviving, we were dominating our niche. Investors started calling. I looked at emails proposing multi-million-dollar partnerships and remembered Dad's voice. You don't deserve it. It's funny how success sounds so much sweeter and sharper when you achieve it in absolute silence. My parents remained silent. No birthday cards, no check-in texts. Their absence, strangely, became the purest form of freedom. When we bought this house, a modern glass structure on the hill, separated from the world, it wasn't to show off or for revenge. It was proof. Proof that choosing yourself isn't destruction. Proof that I wasn't useless like they said. Proof that life can bloom brilliantly even on the scorched earth they left behind. The first night we moved in, the sunset dyed the massive living room gold. Ethan hugged my waist and whispered, "This is just the beginning." I believed him. But I didn't know that a few miles away, a familiar car was quietly rolling toward my address with a purpose that was anything but simple. I had no idea the fragile piece I had worked so hard to build was on the verge of collapse until my phone buzzed on a quiet Saturday morning. It was a text from Sophia, a neighbor a few houses down. "Did your sister just drive by here?" I froze, coffee cup wobbling in my hand. Sophia had met Victoria only once at my wedding, but she had the memory of a hawk. Before I could reply, another text popped up. "She stopped across the street, stared at your house for 5 minutes, then floored it like a crazy person. A chill ran down my spine. 3 years of absolute silence, and now, a ghost from the past was right at my doorstep. Ethan looked at me with concern, but I didn't know what to say. I just knew that the fortress wall I built to keep out the toxicity of the Hartman family had just developed a crack. That afternoon, my phone rang again. The screen displayed a number I hadn't seen since the night Dad declared I was worthless. Mom. For a split second, I thought about letting it go to voicemail. But damn curiosity won out. Lily. Mom's voice rang out, thinner and weaker than I remembered, but still carrying that signature fake tone. Honey, we think it's time we talked. My hand gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Why now? A calculating pause. Victoria said she happened to drive by your area. She saw the house. And that was when I understood everything. Not regret. Not a resurgence of love. It was the scent of value. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they realized the discarded daughter now possessed something they craved. We want to come visit, she continued, voice sweet as poisoned honey. To reconcile. To start over. Fine, I said, voice cold. This Saturday, 2 p.m. sharp. When I hung up, Ethan looked at me. Are you ready? No, I admitted. But I'm tired of running from ghosts. Saturday arrived, the Boston sky clear as if the universe wanted a front row seat to the drama. Ethan and I set up coffee and pastries on the expansive patio overlooking the valley. Not a warm welcome, but cool, neutral hospitality. I didn't invite them deep into the house. I only provided a space polite enough for their act. At exactly 1:58 p.m., security called up. 3 people claiming to be your family are waiting, Ms. Hartman. A shiny black sedan slowly rolled up the granite driveway. Dad stepped out first, silver hair gleaming in the sun, shoulders stiff with pride but eyes unable to hide the shock. Mom followed, a smile plastered on her face so wide it looked painful and fake. And finally, Victoria, looking much smaller and withered than I remembered, clutching her designer bag like a life preserver in the middle of the ocean. I opened the large glass door. Come in. Mom's eyes darted around the 20-foot-high foyer like a barcode scanner, appraising every piece of furniture, every piece of art. Your home? It's magnificent, she gasped, voice cracking with greed mixed with jealousy. I nodded, emotionless. Let's sit on the patio. We sat on the expensive wicker chairs. The sun reflected harshly off the glass railing. The scene was eerily peaceful, a complete contrast to the storm brewing underneath. Dad cleared his throat, trying to regain the lost authority of a surgeon. Lily, we are so glad you agreed to meet. It's been too long. You chose the silence, I replied, voice flat as a frozen lake. An awkward pause settled in. Mom hurriedly interjected, voice trembling. Every family makes mistakes, but we are here to heal, to start fresh. We missed you so much. I looked deep into her eyes, searching for a shred of sincerity but finding only cold calculation. Why? I asked abruptly. The silence stretched, heavy as lead. Then Dad exhaled, deciding to drop the mask. The truth is, we are having some financial difficulties. The malpractice lawsuit cost more than expected. And Andrew, Victoria's husband, needs a strong investor for his startup. Victoria finally spoke, her voice tiny, trembling like a child caught stealing cookies. We thought, maybe you could help? There it was. The velvet curtain had fallen. No apologies, no missing me. Just desperation and greed clumsily disguised. I see, I said, voice so calm Ethan had to glance at me to check. Mom smiled with relief. The smile of someone who believes the prey has walked into the trap. We knew you'd understand. Family supports each other, just like how we took care of Victoria's wedding. My jaw clenched at the shameless comparison. Dad continued, throwing out a number with a tone so entitled it was offensive. $200,000 would help us settle the lawsuit, and another $200,000 for Andrew to launch the project. For someone living in a place like this, that amount is nothing. A buzzing sound rang in my ears. Not anger, but absolute clarity. Before we continue, I cut in, eyes locking onto Victoria. You drove by here and called Mom crying, didn't you? Victoria's face flushed red with shame. Dad growled, Lily, enough. Not yet. I stood up, my shadow casting long over the three people shrinking in their chairs. You didn't come here because you missed me. You came because you realized I became something valuable without your permission. And now, you want to cut. Mom gasped. How dare you say that? Because for 28 years, your love was a conditional contract. I shot back, every word sharp. You taught Victoria to enjoy open doors. You taught me the lesson. Earn it yourself or get nothing. So, I did exactly that. I earned it all myself. We did everything for you, Dad shouted, his ego bruised. No. I looked straight at him, eyes devoid of the fear the child in me once held. You said I didn't deserve help, and you were right. So, my answer to this money is no. Not a dime for the lawsuit. Not a dime for Andrew. Mom stood up abruptly, face twisted in shock. After everything we've done for you, how could you? After all the double standards you forced on me, I corrected gently, and the pain that pushed me to build this life without you. They stared at me, stunned by the frightening calmness. I turned to Victoria, my gaze stopping at her stomach. I softened my voice, not for sisterhood, but for the innocent life not yet born. I won't give cash for the lawsuit or your husband's trash project, but I will do one thing. I will set up a full education trust fund for the baby. Victoria's jaw dropped. You'd really do that? Yes, but with one condition. The fund will be in the child's name. No one has the right to withdraw money for any other purpose, including the parents, until the child is 21, because that child deserves a future unstained by the calculation and debt of this family. Dad scoffed, trying to salvage the last bit of his dignity. You think you have the right to make conditions with us? I'm not making demands. I stood up, signaling the meeting was over. I'm granting a favor. And now, please leave. You will no longer have access to me. No resources, no time, and definitely not my peace. Ethan opened the door. One by one, they walked past him. Dad stiff with rage, Mom trembling with humiliation, and Victoria paused for a second, whispering, "Thank you for the scholarship." When the black sedan disappeared behind the hill, I exhaled. Fresh air rushed into my lungs. No guilt, just the relief of a boulder finally being lifted. I learned the biggest lesson of my life. Family isn't defined by blood, but by respect. The most brutal revenge isn't making them suffer. It's letting them see you perfectly happy without them. I took a sip of coffee, looked at the empire I built from the ashes of rejection, and smiled. This is what winning really looks like. What do you think about Lily's decision? Was cutting them off completely too cruel, or was it necessary self-protection? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe peace is the biggest victory, subscribe to the channel today to join us for more inspiring stories.